Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento. And if you've ever sat there while working on your own business and said, operations? I don't even have operations. I just kind of figure it out as I go. Then you are going to absolutely love today's guest, because this is someone who not only has a high standard of excellence, but someone who clearly loves operations. I'll tell you, having gone through her business's deliverables, everything she works on is so organized. It's so beautiful. And most importantly, it sets businesses and organizations up for success. So let me introduce you to today's guest. Her name is Victoria Peterson. Victoria is a dynamic leader and innovative strategist dedicated to advancing healthcare practices through operational excellence and refined internal marketing. As the founder and principal consultant of MediConsult Solutions, she leverages extensive healthcare experience to develop tailored solutions that ease operational stress. If you need that, then you're in the right place today. Fosters team unity and elevates patient care. Victoria's approach is built on a deep understanding of the unique challenges and practices across the healthcare landscape. She partners with business owners, practitioners, and management to create business models that resonate with their core values and vision, helping streamline workflows, enhancing communication, and boosting overall efficiency. By conducting thorough operational audits, we're definitely going to talk about that today, and implementing targeted internal marketing strategies, Victoria empowers teams to work cohesively while driving sustainable growth and profitability. So whether you're in healthcare or not, these are all objectives that we all share, and I know that we're going to learn a lot today, so I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Victoria Peterson. All right, Victoria, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brian, for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Heck yes, there's so much that we're all going to learn from you, and I'm really excited because healthcare is such a fast-moving industry with a lot of complexities, so I know that we'll be able to boil down a lot of your takeaways and insights to our own businesses, but before we do that, take us beyond the bio. Who's Victoria? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
Great question. So over the past, it's been over 10 years now. Even growing up, I knew I wanted to work in healthcare. From volunteer experiences with Girl Scouts to internships that I then had in college. And each experience really showed me a different avenue, so to speak, of what the different specialties within healthcare that each one had to offer, as well as all of the different ways and, unfortunately, problems that could be experienced by not only the staff, but also the patients. And going through school, coming straight out of college with both a bachelor's and a master's, I had some difficulty obtaining a job. In all honesty, with that time, any job that asked for a master's degree also wanted 15 to 20 years of experience. Well, I was in my early 20s and I did not have that. And then anything that did not require a master's, but maybe required a bachelor's or just high school level experience, told me that I was overqualified. With that being said, I worked hard to start right at the lower end of working in healthcare, working front desk, doing hands-on patient care, and all the way up through leadership, HR, billing, accounting, just to get a better understanding of all of the different areas within healthcare, different specialties, working from an educational standpoint with public health, all the way to administration. And having had those experiences along with a variety of wonderful mentors and peers that I worked with really showed me a lot about what happens within the healthcare industry and how best to solve problems.
Yeah, I really love that overview, Victoria, because I'll be honest, what really stands out to me about your story is the fact that you entered the world of healthcare, which we all know as patients and as people who use the healthcare system. But what I really appreciate about your journey is the fact that you see healthcare as operations, as a business, because it is a business aimed, of course, at serving patients in the best possible way for the best possible care. But your mind and the way that you dig into this industry is you love uncovering what makes it work, what makes it tick. And the fact that you're a fellow entrepreneur, you're a fellow business owner, you're also forced to understand the business side of things. Talk to us about that landscape, because a lot of people, when they see healthcare, we think about the things we're being treated for. Neither you nor I are physicians, so obviously we're not talking about that today, but we both are very interested in how do we make it operationally sound? What are those different fundamental ingredients and things that you look at from that business perspective?
Great question, Brian. So from an operational perspective, one of the biggest things I look at is the communication. Because the second a patient sets foot inside the door, the first person they speak to sets the tone for their overall experience. And the same goes for patient handoffs, and that's the communication from team member to team member. And then also how it's communicated with the providers that may be seeing the patients that day, the procedures they might be having, or injections, or whatever their reason is for being at that appointment. It is the core responsibility of the team there to set the tone for the visit with the patient and their overall experience. I also like I like to look at things from 10,000 feet. Yes, I've worked at many different family medicine practices, chiropractic, urgent care, so on and so forth, but each one is different. They have a different team structure, they offer different services, and it's really important to dive in and figure out exactly what their strengths and weaknesses are, any objections they might have by the team, whether or not they're open to change, and figuring out ways to work best for a positive experience for all involved.
Yeah, hearing you talk about that goal of obviously a positive experience for everyone involved, which includes the patients, but also the teams and the people that you're working with, your clients, where my head goes is obviously to change. Hearing you talk about, I look at communication. That's one of the first foremost pillars that you've brought up here in today's conversation. I think to myself, well, a lot of these organizations and frontline employees probably think, Victoria, we communicate the way that we communicate. We've always done it this way. We don't necessarily want it to change. We don't necessarily want somebody to walk in and make sense of it and improve it ultimately. Talk to us about that aspect of change, both from a mindset perspective, because I would imagine that you have to consider that in how you help people achieve that operational excellence, but then also the fundamental, the actual execution of here's how we put together a plan in actions to support these improvements that we want.
Great question. So that is exactly it. When it comes to communication, people need to have the mindset and understanding that their day-to-day habits, because they've been doing them for so long, aren't always going to provide the best results possible. Healthcare, laws, people, demographics, patients, they all change. They're never stop changing. And with a lot of clients that I've worked with, it really sometimes takes a lot of time for individuals to be open to change, to have that mindset and understanding that, hey, we really do need to move from paper chart to digital charts, and this is why. Or understanding that each department has their own acronyms and so-called slang terms that they use that might mean something completely different in a different department, but not actually understanding and realizing that. So people may walk around with their heads down, nod in agreement, and just try to move forward. But what is that doing? That's causing more issues and bottlenecks. and just blowing up the problems at hand, making it more difficult then for leadership to step in and address those concerns, because there isn't always enough time, finances, or energy even to tackle and prioritize those issues.
Yeah, Victoria, when I picture you going through these projects and obviously having gone through your website and all your marketing materials, it's clear to me that when you walk into a practice, you come armed with a lot of best practices, a lot of checklists, a lot of templates to make their lives easier. And your work really brings me back to a business conference that I went to in Orlando, Florida. And I saw an executive from Disney speak, and he said that all too often as businesses, we like to map our operations out on whiteboards, but we map them out from our perspective as opposed to our customers' perspectives. And your industry is so patient focused that I would imagine so many of the questions that you ask yourself internally are those patient focused questions of, okay, how's the patient flow look? What is the communication with the patient before the appointment, after the appointment? Talk to us about how you go in. Is it going through the patient flow? Is it looking at an organization's back office? How do you even begin to make sense of all the different things that are happening in a business?
So that's exactly it. Checklists. They are my number one go-to. They always have been, in order to be organized with all of this, because again, there is so many different moving parts in any medical practice. Doesn't matter the size. And looking at their care model, if it is that patient-centered care focus, then yes, that is a mindset that I am going to come in with. With having so many moving parts and having a checklist, whether or not a lot of staff realize it, they're already using checklists in their head. They're making sure that, okay, we have someone here who can do x-rays. We have someone here that can do injections. We have someone here that can work the front desk and check patients in. It's all about knowing the roles of the staff that are there, their responsibilities, and how they contribute to the overall team environment. And again, then how that relays and affects that patient experience and the overall business as a whole to increase the revenue.
Yeah, I love that answer, Victoria, especially knowing that your work pairs both the operational stuff that you do, but also with the internal marketing. A lot of people may not be familiar with that term of internal marketing. As entrepreneurs, we always talk about marketing and social media and all of that. Talk to us about that pairing of operations and internal marketing. And of course, importantly, introduce listeners to what is the importance? What is that internal marketing that you focus on?
I love that question because I actually get it quite a bit. A lot of people think of marketing and they want to talk SEO and social media and online presence. And internal marketing itself is actually all the documentation. It's the patient education materials, the staff resource materials, whether it be training resources or just something to have on hand for reference if needed for situational concerns that they might have or the patient might bring, and keeping those up to date so that they match any new services that might be offered or specialties that providers are bringing in, and new equipment even too. Because if your past patient education materials says, oh, well, we actually don't offer that service here, but you can go to this place or this place, that's only doing your own business a disservice. Patients come in and may have the white coat theory is what they call it. So when they come in and speak with someone, they may or may not fully comprehend what is being told to them. And the second they walk outside the door, they may or may not remember what was even said. So they have a difficult time either following that treatment plan, communicating it with their spouse or other peers. And then when they come back, it's unfortunately just a disservice because they were never given any type of material or reference, like brochure or anything, to help continue that education and knowledge and make the patient feel as if they fully understand their options.
Yeah, it's such an important takeaway. I love that you called that out as the example, because we've all experienced it either as patients ourselves or people who are concerned about our loved ones who have been to the doctor or been to any healthcare facility. Because anytime my parents go, I always say, like, what did the doctor say? And I get a very short Cliff Notes version of it, Victoria. And of course, it doesn't do justice to all the information that the physician had gathered along the way. And so with that in mind, one thing that I like these days is that there's AI to help us as end customers, as patients, to make sense of some of the information that we've been given, whether it's through lab results or doctor's notes, whatever it may be. How's AI playing into all of this, Victoria? I would imagine that it's empowering both sides of the equation, the practitioners as well as the patients.
AI is definitely booming right now, but I think it's really important to specify that AI is not human. And there's a lot that comes into like a physician's medical decision making that AI can't pick up on. So when it comes to charting and dictations that are being made, it's easy to say, okay, AI can pull a list of 5 of the most common medications that are used to treat these symptoms. But at the same time, they don't have any idea about this patient's medical history. They don't know that this patient is allergic to this, this, and this, or they've already tried this and no, they didn't develop an allergy from it, but it also didn't help. And it's only that physician that can make that final decision. So it does help, especially when there are time constraints, with a full volume of patients that they're seeing, but at the same time, it's, again, can be a disservice too if the physician doesn't take the time to truly assess that patient and their medical history. Same kind of goes with education materials. If they come up with a service that they're bringing in, yes, AI can pull all the background information, research studies and articles, as to why this nerve therapy is helpful and what it does. But what does it mean to a patient when they walk into that office to receive it? Lay out that process when they come in. Do they have an initial consultation with a physician first, or do they just check in at the front desk and MA takes them back, hooks them up, and leaves them there for 15 to 30 minutes? There's so many different parts in these processes that is important to pay attention to make sure that there is a positive experience for both the staff and patients when it comes to utilizing AI.
It's a valuable perspective, Victoria, especially because I want to bring it all the way back to your very first answer here in our conversation today, which is you openly acknowledged healthcare has its challenges and its problems. And so when I think about the problems, you're giving us examples, and it's really cool that your work focuses on fixing these problems. But what I think is the coolest part of your job is something that I always hear people in healthcare talk about, which is the root cause versus the symptom. Because when it comes to healthcare, the actual practice, a lot of times we treat our symptoms. And so if I have a cough, I can get anti-cough medicine and that will stop my cough. But what was the underlying cause of the cough? Obviously, that's where the value is. And the reason why I use that as an example is because I want to talk about that in the context of your work, is your operations. Is I would imagine a lot of times when you walk into your clients' offices, or even if you're working with them remotely, what they think is the root cause is just a symptom of a bad patient experience or of misaligned communication. How do you make sense of symptoms versus root causes? What's that line of questioning look like to get there? And where does your head go to help clients navigate through those problems?
Wonderful question, Brian. So whenever I step into a facility or have an initial discussion, which I like to call strategy calls for that reason, because I tackle things from 10,000 feet. I look for any type of reasoning that they might have, any solutions they may have tried already, and what kind of evaluations they did or reasons as to why they did or did not work, and then move forward from there. In healthcare, just like in any business and in life, you don't know what you don't know. And when you do know, do better. So when it comes to looking at what the best solution would be for a problem, I like to break it down into parts. I assess, so let's say it's a billing issue and they keep getting a lot of returned bills or claim denials, so to speak, and we need to figure out that it's not necessarily the billing department's issue. It could actually be on the clinical end. Yes, it could be one of the billers. They're downcoding, they didn't add the correct attachments, there's something wrong on the HCFAs, something like that. Or it could be something actually on the clinical side that there's not enough elaboration on the reasoning as to the plan of care for the patient in the chart. There's not a reason of why the provider put a medication in there or prescribed a medication to a patient, or how they got to the decision that they did for the plan of care. Also, it could be, missing a signature where it's needed. And then looking from there, okay, is this going to be an actual physician issue, or is this really an EHR issue? There's not enough character space in that free text field. The dictation template needs to be updated, or maybe there isn't a template at all to help support the staff that are utilizing the EHR and completing the patient chart to provide enough necessary information for insurance to pay the claims on time. So looking at that, it's finding who is all involved in those processes, who touches what, who is responsible for what, and just streamlining and providing support and resources as needed to all of those people involved to not only provide a solution to that time, but also prevent it from happening again.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I bet that you really enjoy your projects because it is problem solving at its finest, is that there's so many different pieces of the puzzle for you to make sense of and for you to see where they fit. And I'm going to use that as a segue to transition a little bit and talk about your own business, because not only are you doing this for your clients and for so many different healthcare practices around the country, but you're one of us. You're a fellow entrepreneur with your own business that's providing these services. How has this perspective and all of your experiences, how has it played into the way that you personally operate as an entrepreneur when it comes to growing and operating your own business?
So when it comes to growing and operating my own business, I constantly am evaluating my goals and my solutions to any issues that come up. I don't believe that there is a one solution that's going to fix everything. And again, when you know better, you do better. So I'm constantly learning, increasing my skill set. I've always been a very curious individual. So with the business, I structure a mindset. I do a priority list every day of what my top 3 priorities are. I separate out my quick tasks that I can take care of. I write down things to look forward to. And then I also practice gratitude. So I look at what's something I can be thankful for today, what's something I can look forward to tomorrow or this week. And then I schedule things out on not only a daily basis, but also a weekly basis and a quarterly basis and a yearly basis. What are my short-term goals versus my long-term goals? And again, I just leave myself open to positively reconstructing and reevaluating each of those goals at any time.
Yeah, when you say, Victoria, I want to pick on this a little bit more. You say that you don't believe there's one solution for every single business. I really want to call out for listeners that you actually practice that in the way your business serves your clientele as well. Because a lot of people listening to you and I here on the air today, they might be thinking, well, you just strictly have a consulting agency and that's the services that you provide. I love the fact that it's not just consulting for all different companies, whatever size they have, whatever budget. You also have digital products, for example. There's a store right on your website where I can see if I have a healthcare practice, here's the different operational checklists and documents and guides that you have available to me, even if I never engage with you on a consulting basis. Talk to us about that structuring of services and products, because I think it's such a brilliant way to serve different segments of the market at different depths.
Absolutely. So I developed the products with the intent to assist providers, facilities, management, or leadership to really take a step back and make sure they are taking the time to truly understand their business. Like you had mentioned previously, it is, we get into doing things day in and day out, and they just become so habitual that some of those small things on the side or small issues often get overlooked. And by having these checklists or audits that individuals can do, quarterly or yearly or however often they feel is needed, depending on staff turnover, service changes, and any other changes that may be happening within the facility, that they have this resource to go to help reset their mind and re-tackle any issues that may be at hand that need to be addressed and reprioritized.
Yeah, that's the part. I really love that deliverable, the audit. And you have mentioned it a few times. I'm a big fan. I love quarterly bases. There's so much that we can accomplish in 90 days. 90 days is both a big amount of time, but also a small amount of time to be super focused. Talk to us about those audits. I'm particularly interested in what are those ingredients? Are they questions that you have in the audit? Are there metrics that you invite your clients to pull? What do those audits look like so that we can kind of steal some of that stuff for our own businesses and really take inventory? That's the term that I use all the time in my own head, is I need to take inventory of things every 90 days.
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things with those audits that I like to do is getting back to basics, figuring out who's all responsible, who's a part of the team, what they do on a daily basis. I have a marketing person, I have a front desk check-in person, I have a hands-on patient care person here, or other clinical support. This is a physician, they specialize in this, so on and so forth. But at the time, with not only roles constantly changing, because maybe now this person's day-to-day, they're now actually responsible for assisting marketing with this piece over here. And with those constant changes that we have in healthcare and management, and having so much responsibilities that just keep consistently piling up and not enough time in the day to complete everything, or in the week, that it's important to look back at all of those responsibilities and say, hey, I've got to get this off my plate. I don't have time to do this anymore. Or maybe this is something that I need to just look at maybe 2 years down the road, that maybe it's just not the best fit for me and my business at this time. And so those audits help realign priorities, give an idea of what might be missing, what your quick tasks might be, and what might require more additional support or other team members that can assist to execute and get those problems or needs solved.
Yes, I love that answer, Victoria. I'm so grateful for you transparently sharing those ideas with us, because listeners, every single one of us, whether you're in healthcare or far from healthcare, what Victoria is sharing with us today, these are the operational foundations of any successful workflow. And you can see how process oriented she is. These intentional and strategic questions we can all use in our own businesses. So it's really cool hearing your perspective on these things, Victoria. With that in mind, you've given us so much advice and insights and strategies here today that I have no idea how you're going to answer this last question, and that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and knowing that you're one of us, you are a fellow entrepreneur of ours, what's that one piece of advice that you want to leave them with today?
The one piece of advice that I would leave for listeners today is to essentially give yourself grace. There is so much that you can stress out about. You know, we're all human. At times you can have a lot on your plate. But again, just know that you are human. Take time to look at what the problems are or what the tasks are, how to best prioritize them and move forward. And just know that it's okay to make changes. That change is inevitable and you can move forward.
Yes, I love that advice. So important, Victoria. We don't talk about that enough, not only as entrepreneurs, but societally, is to give yourself grace. It's so important. These things don't happen overnight, and we probably will be a disaster for some period of time, and we'll probably be a disaster again when we have those growing pains in the future. But giving ourselves grace, auditing, taking inventory, I love all of these things you've shared with us today. So for listeners who want to go deeper into all the great work that you're doing and all the great things that you're putting into the world, drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Absolutely. So I have a website, which is my business name, Medi, MEDI-consult, CONSULT, solutions.com. And there, like Brian mentioned, is also a shop with some digital products in there. And then I also have a LinkedIn and a Facebook page under my business name, Medi Consult Solutions.
Yes, and listeners, on top of that, you know how easy we want to make it for every single one of you to find those links down below in the show notes. No matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode, scroll down, view those show notes, click right on through. You don't have to remember any of these links. We're also linking to Victoria's personal LinkedIn, so if you want to continue the conversation with her, or you know a medical practice that she can help, or you have one yourself, or you want to introduce her to somebody, it's always great to be surrounded by incredible entrepreneurs, so definitely check those links out down below. Otherwise, Victoria, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much, Brian, for having me.